Reset with Jacob Naraki. Welcome back to Operation Self-Reset. I am Jacob Naraki, and you are listening to the one and only podcast to transform your life from the person you are right now to that person you strive, crave, and want to become. I thank you guys so much for taking time and listening to this podcast. I know there's millions and billions of podcasts out there, but you chose to listen to mine, so I appreciate you for that. And I hope that you and your family had an amazing Thanksgiving day. And for the people that went out shopping on Thanksgiving night, shame on you. Thanksgiving is all about family, not about going to Walmart, waiting in line for that Xbox One or that new PlayStation or that external hard drive for $5 off. It's not worth it. You should have been hanging out with the family. So for all the hard chargers that decided to stay with their families and hang out with Uncle Eddie, the weird guy, he's probably passed out drunk, watching the Thursday night football game, whatever it was, I can salute you. Congratulations through making it another Thanksgiving Day. Personally, I actually went to 3 Thanksgiving Day parties because, well, when you have a newborn, you kind of have to show them off and go around to your aunts and uncles and here and there. And actually, it turned out to be really good, a really successful day. At first, I thought it was going to be long and ridiculous, but overall, it was a great hit, great success, and the little guy did well also. So I hope that you guys had another memorable Thanksgiving Day and many more to come. So with that being said, today is all about a new start, a new reset on life. The one thing that I love about Operation Self-Reset and what this podcast stands for is all about talking to individuals, normal people like me, you, that's listening right now, and talking about our things that have come into our lives and how did we get over them. The successes, the failures, the things that went well, the things that did not go well. What did we learn from our life experiences? So when somebody is listening to our own personal story, they can go, okay, Jake did this. Well, that didn't work out so well. So if I'm in that situation, I should not go down that road, right? That's the reason why we love stories as Americans, as humans, as people of the world. Who doesn't love a good story? You watch some of the best public speakers out there, they always start with a personal story, a story that engages you because we like to be taken down these different journeys in life. And that's why I invite certain people on this podcast. And you're thinking, okay, well, that got pretty deep quick. So where are you going, Jake? What I'm trying to say is that every individual that you meet in life, no matter if it's a store clerk or a CEO of a huge company, or maybe the guy that cuts your lawn or whatever it may be in your own personal life, we all have amazing stories within. We have all gone through so much. And sometimes we need to brush that layer of dirt off and uncover these jewels, these gems of these stories that can really help guide us and get better in life. It's easy to go to college and get smarter in a certain subject and master that and then apply it to a business or a job. But when we listen to other people's personal stories, it's almost like we're studying life. It's almost like that course on life. Nobody really has the exact philosophy behind it. There is no exact course or structure to it. The only way we really learn in life is 2 ways. One, we experience it ourselves, and either we fail or we succeed. Or the other way we learn is by hearing it from other individuals and hearing if they failed or if they succeeded. And that's why I love talking to different people from all different aspects in life. And that brings me to the guest that we have on today. His name is Caleb Bacon. He has a podcast called The Man School, and where he talks to men mostly about life stories, about things that went well, things that didn't go well. And Caleb is an individual that he writes for a comedy TV show on the West Coast in California. He grew up on the East Coast, and he has gone through his own personal reset. And the way that I got in touch with Caleb was just the email that he shot me out of the blue. We started talking, we started connecting, and next thing you know, I decided to sit down with him and to hear his own personal story, not knowing literally anything about him, other than we had a couple of sentences back and forth on an email. And the things that have unfolded in our course of our interview that I'm going to be sharing with you guys is remarkable. Caleb himself has gone through so much, his own personal transformation. He came from a great background. He decided to venture off, go to the West Coast, and he's going to share this whole story. I get caught up easily in telling you guys like almost a clip version of the interview. So then you're like, well, why the heck am I listening to this interview? when Jake is already ruining it for me. So I'm not going to go any farther, and I apologize for doing that. I just get really excited about these interviews. But I just want to say that every single one of us has an amazing story. And the only reason why that I'm so excited and jacked for today's episode is because it's truly what I'm preaching. You don't know who you're going to be talking to in line. You don't know who might be sitting next to you in that airplane or in that bus ride. Turn around, talk to them, get to know them. Because I guarantee it, they have done something so spectacular, something that could really help you in your journey in life. At least maybe not make you find that $1 million or become a successful individual, but to give you a better insight or a better outlook on life, whatever it may be. And that's why I had a great time talking with Caleb here, because he has so much and done so much, and he's intermixed with so many different things that are going on in his own personal life. And it was amazing to really see that. I guess when I reflect on this interview, it just made me realize we all have personal journeys in our own life. And you listening right now, you have things that you can share. You have things and ideas and memories and stories that can truly help other individuals. And when we go through life, there are times that we feel sad and like depressed and like, oh man, why is it I'm always the one that's, the car's always breaking down? Why am I always the guy losing his job? Why am I the guy not, having good, healthy relationships? But truly, all the things that have happened in your life, even if they're horrible, can help somebody else. So I hope when you guys are listening to Caleb's story here, take it for what it's worth. Listen to really the truth that's behind the microphone. Everything that he has done and that has really helped him find clarity in his own personal life, because we all need that every once in a while. And Caleb's a really funny guy, and his sarcasm is awesome. And when I talk to him, he slides in these jokes and one-liners underneath his breath that is so good. It's absolutely hilarious. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Welcome, OSR community. Today we have a special guest. His name is Caleb Bacon. He has a podcast called The Man School. And the reason why him and I connected is because he talks to real men with real problems, real successes, real ideas about life. He shares tips on the way to improve yourself, kind of the same way that we talk on this podcast about interviewing people and more in mindset. He talks about everything that has to do with life in general. Caleb, it's an honor to have you on here, man. I really do appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on today.
Oh, Jacob, thank you so much. And I got to say, I love your last name, Naraki. I feel like you're like the lineman on my football team. Like, nice block, Naraki.
Everybody calls me Rock, so it's actually a pretty cool last name. But then, I remember hearing one of your podcasts too, when people see your name, they kind of like, how did you put it? It's like they never spoke English before. Is that correct? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When people see the word Caleb on it, they just come up with these crazy things. It's like, maybe you don't know the name Caleb, but I don't know how you think it's, Caleb, stuff.
Yeah, well, just like Naraki, the I at the end throws them off, so they're like Naraki, it's so funny, but hey, that's the way it goes. Yeah, Naraki, Naraki Saki, so. But Caleb, man, so let's kind of talk about yourself here. There might be people that already listen to you. There might be people that are unfamiliar with yourself. Do you mind kind of giving us the Cliff Note version of your life in general and how you went on out to the West Coast?
Yeah, I think what's nice about a lot of podcasts is usually you get a chance to see what somebody's up to in terms of like when they talk about their projects, but you get a chance to really know the person. Whereas if you see a 5-minute television interview, you don't really know what somebody's all about. So it's nice because I'm not someone who's pitching a particular book. Here's the Caleb method to life, and here's the principles we're going to talk about. I can actually talk about my story, because I think that's important to how I got to Man School and my career and the things I believe in now. So I'm 32 years old from Albany, New York, which is a good place to grow up. Not such a good place to be an adult for a guy like me who wanted to have like a really fun, cool job. And I worked for Red Bull in college, and I had this really fun marketing job, and I got to go all around the Northeast. I got to go to all these fun events. I got to hang out with some fun people, and I saw it with this company. So this was like 10, 12 years ago, and Red Bull was just coming to America. And the corporate philosophy in Red Bull is you bust your ass, you have a good time, but you're professional yet relaxed. Like you don't have to be in a suit, but you have to have a lot of passion. And once I saw this when I'm in college, I was just like, oh my God. So I can go out into the world and have a fun job and I don't have to, be like a quote businessman, which I couldn't wrap my head around that. Like it always just seemed boring. And I was a creative guy.
Sure.
And my dad, I grew up, my dad was a lawyer. My mom was a bookkeeper. Like they liked their jobs, but I was just totally not into that. And so once I was in college, I saw that I had a chance because of Red Bull to just have a fun life where I could actually do something with it. And then I got a chance to get an entry level job in television in Los Angeles, just basically because of a connection I had, which was not the fact that my last name is Bacon and I have an uncle named Kevin Bacon, because I have an uncle named Kevin Bacon. It's a different guy.
Awesome.
Not the Footloose guy.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
Yeah. But I did see Kevin Bacon, the actor, at a restaurant a few weeks ago, and I kind of felt like he's going to look over and just give me the nod and be like, yeah, I know. Oh, that did not happen. But I did see him, so that was nice.
Oh, for sure.
So I moved out here. I got an entry-level job on a television show. And once I got here, it was like, okay, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but this whole TV thing is pretty cool. Being on a set all day long, working with people who are passionate about their careers, who didn't have to wear a suit and tie, and who got to chase their dreams. And there's a lot of people who are like electricians on television shows who, by the way, they make a ton of dough. Like that's their dream, to be an electrician on a television show.
Sure.
So it's not just the quote creative people who are chasing the dream. It's a lot of people, and there's a nice energy about that. But what happened to me was I have the story that a lot of other people have, and I thought this was not going to be my story, and it's kind of lame. But guy from the East Coast moves to Hollywood, drinks too much, does too many drugs, and goes crazy. And that took 3.5 years to happen, I would say. And a lot of people will say, LA's evil or she'll get you or that sort of thing. And I don't necessarily think that's true, but LA does attract a lot of creative people to come here for show business, music business, what have you. And a lot of creative people have got a lot of issues and are either unhinged or can come unhinged pretty easily. And I did not think that was going to be the case for me, but didn't realize the case of alcoholism I was playing with. So
for sure. Before we dive into that, now moving from the East Coast to the West Coast, let's before I even ask that question about your parents. Now, you being a creative individual, your parents seem pretty blue collar, traditional work ethic, pretty straightforward individuals. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And how did you become creative? Now, was it something you just was always, tinkering with stuff? Were you always drawing, reading? How did you get, kind of your sense of humor and all that stuff, as opposed to your parents kind of being pretty straightforward people?
So I'm a sitcom writer now.
Right.
And I just always loved comedy and humor and cracking jokes. And my dad's a really funny guy. Sure. And so he's a lawyer, but so that job of being a lawyer, you don't think is something where you're funny, but he deals with people all day long. And so I think most jobs you deal with people all day long, no matter what it is. And I would just always see him inject humor into situations and try and make people smile and like have a better moment with him than they would have otherwise by not being around him. And I just always thought that was really cool and really admirable. And for him, it just came from a really genuine place. And for me, I would say I've definitely chased humor much further, to whereas a lot of times it has not came from a genuine place. It came from insecurity. Whereas, I've definitely said to me, like, why can't you just take this seriously? And the answer that I did not know for so long is because I just want you to like me.
Yeah, sure. I hear you on that. What were they supportive of your career choice and wanting to leave the East Coast and venture on to greener pastures?
Yeah. My parents were cool. And in hindsight, they totally did not have to be, because when I moved out to LA, it was really for good times and good weather. It wasn't chasing a dream or a vision. It was just, all right, I want to go on to bigger and better things. I don't know what they are. Can I borrow $10?
Right. That's awesome. What were you thinking? Were you excited, jacked? Were you just, kind of the fear of the unknown? What was going through your mind at that time?
Well, personally? As you know, you're in Wisconsin, where it gets very cold.
Oh, yes.
I was in upstate New York, where it got very cold. all right, let's do some warm weather. And I always thought that I would have a chance to like be the best guy that I could be if I lived in a warm weather place. Because I would just wake up so many days and I know, you know what this feels like. And it's dark out and you have to go out and scrape your car windshield and it's freezing and life just seems so hard. And I just always thought like if I could go somewhere where that wasn't the case half the year, I'd have a chance to do some pretty cool things.
For sure. You know, the funniest thing is kind of going off of that. The thing I realized living in the Midwest here is the amount of time you waste just trying to dig yourself out. You know, I mean, shoveling and snow blowing and scraping your car. I mean, that's hours and days of your life just taken away. You know, I remember we've been hit so hard with snow. It's like I'm snow blowing literally like 5 times a day just to keep up with it. I was like, I could be using that time for like yourself now on the beach, just hanging out with friends, you know, talking to cool, interesting people, whatever, you know. So, you know, you brought up a good point there.
Well, how about just to do the things you want to do with your life, whatever that is. And if that's get sleep, if that's spend time with your kid, it's really nice to not have that particular situation in my life anymore. I forgot how we got on this topic here, but I love California.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Now, before we dive into continue your story and the difficulties that arose when you went to LA, you spoke of passion that people in California have. You know, they come out there in airplane loads of just they have the dream, they want to be the next big actor, actress, what have you. How does one, do you feel, get that passion? You had a passion for comedy. You knew that going out to the West Coast was really going to get yourself in a position to keep on writing or speaking about what you love, which is comedy. How does one find that passion? Is it just something that you feel you kind of grow up with it and then you realize it? Or do you think you can kind of discover it as time goes on? Because in this podcast, you know, it's all about, you know, changing the person you are to the person you want to be. And people always ask me, how do you find your passion? Do you have an answer for them?
Well, I got a couple answers. I think first of all, you either know or you don't know. And if you have a passion that is, you know, if you want to be a teacher and you're passionate about that and you're an accountant, like, you know, there's some fear you have to walk through and there's some steps you have to take if you want to make that happen. But for a lot of people, I think their passion is something that they don't quite see as, well, I love sports, but how do I make a job out of that? How do I make a career out of that? How do I jump into the unknown? Right. And I think it takes work. And that work means you got to step way out of your comfort zone. You got to face yourself. And I think the best way to do that is to talk to other people that have done it.
Sure. Yeah, no, that you're very true. I mean, the more people you talk to, you get a better idea of their work ethic, and, you know, their personality on seeing how they connect the dots and make themselves a success. You know, you always want to talk to individuals that are more successful than yourself. But, okay, very true. Thank you for that.
I've had the experience where I've gone and talked to someone who is in a place I would want to be or who's in an admirable place. And it's like, you know, this guy's not that different from me.
Yeah.
This guy's not that special. Now, I don't mean that in a negative way, but sometimes you meet people and you're like, oh my God, this guy's so intelligent. He's so smart. He's so handsome. It makes sense why he's where he is. But other times it's like, you know what? If that guy can do it, I can do it. And I think that's something that has really spoken to me throughout my life.
No, that's very true. And the more people I talk to on this podcast, you know, you always put those people on a pedestal, and which is good because, you know, you need something to really strive at, set your goals very high. And, but you're right. When you meet these people, you're like, geez, he's just a cool guy like me. You know, he has the same interests. You know, he seems really smart, but he's actually just average Joe, you know, and it kind of brings it down to reality. And you're like, okay, we're kind of on the even playing field. And you see where he's at. You're like, well, why can't I reach that? So that's a huge point. That's why we talk to individuals. So so tell us about the big kind of issues that arose when you're in California. You mind diving into that?
Yeah. When I lived back in Albany, New York, I was around my friends and my family. And basically, without even realizing it, I had to be accountable to a certain life. And then once I moved to California, I got to create my own life. It was based upon living where I wanted to live. I got to pick any neighborhood in the city, found where I thought would be cool for me. I got to have a job in an industry I wanted to be in. I got to like make all new friends, got to find all new hangouts. And for a guy like me who often chases feeling good at the expense of a lot of things, it just put myself in a situation to kick my own butt.
Yeah. Now, what What was it? Was it just more you were just kind of, you felt free, nobody really holding you back? You just felt like finally you're your own man, you can make your own decisions without anybody looking over your shoulder? Was that the case?
Without even thinking about it at the time, when I look back, it was basically like I felt like when I was back in the East Coast, I was like a horse who was in a starting gate at the beginning of the horse race, who's like raring to go, but is held back.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I got out to California, it's just like the gates open and I got to be exactly who I wanted to be. And the problem was that did not work.
Sure.
I got to a place where like I went from like a happy guy who just wanted to party and have fun to somebody who was really depressed and anxious and didn't really care about things or people. And I hurt a lot of people, and I had friends say like, yeah, Caleb, I just don't want to hang out with you anymore. And I thought it was because they were lame, and I never was able to see that I was the problem.
Right. Now, you just spoke, you're in a very dark place. How did you get out of that? Who showed you the light? Was it yourself? Was it somebody, like you just said, your friend stopped wanting to hang out with you and you kind of put it on them like, oh, they're the losers or whatever? Who opened that door and said, man, your life is not going in a good direction? Who woke you up?
It was my boss at the time. And I was drunk. But I wasn't a guy who woke up and had a beer.
Sure.
Except for the times I woke up and had a beer. But for the most part, like, I was just a guy who once I was out of work, it was party time. And the thing about that was it allowed me to keep up this lie that, oh, I'm not the alcoholic on the street corner with a brown paper bag, therefore I'm good. I still have an apartment, I still have a job, I'm good. But I had lost a lot of things and a lot of relationships. But the one thing I hadn't screwed up was my job. And I was working for this really high profile writer who was someone who I really loved and was really, well, basically I knew his story, and I believed everything he told me, and I believed that he was a sober guy, and I knew about his problems. And so once I finally screwed up my situation with my job, he sat me down and talked to me in a way that I'd never been talked to before. And also I was ready to listen. And so it wasn't that he was a boss scolding me or saying, I'll fire you. It was a guy saying, I know what you're going through. I've been there. I'll give you a chance to get it together. But if you don't, that's fine. I'll fire you too. And it was just so powerful. It was like, oh my God, I believe this man. I know he cares about me. And what does this say about me? And that was the first time I really looked at not just about my drinking, but about like, what's the best way for me to live my life? And the answer was by knocking off a lot of old behaviors.
Now, how did you do that? Was it, did you finally go, okay, so you talked to your boss, he kind of put you on the straight and narrow. Did you kind of walk out of that meeting and go, man, I gotta straighten up? Did you start seeking help? Did you start talking to people? Did you start reading books? You start searching on the internet, YouTube videos? What was your plan of action? Because again, I just want to give reference to people that might be in similar situation, and where did you seek help?
Well, the first thing I did was I went to the hospital because I had punched a bus stop and busted open my hand pretty bad.
Oh boy. Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. So I needed some X-rays. First thing. Sure. Go see an X-ray machine. But he basically put me in touch with some people who had been there before, and I got hooked up in a recovery community. And there's in Los Angeles, I mean, it's one of those kind of cheesy things where it is new agey out here. But the thing about that is that there's a lot of people who are just open to different ways of like finding health. And so there's a lot of stuff out here in terms of like sobriety and recovery that I do not relate to, but there's a lot of stuff that I do relate to. So I get a chance to just start meeting people, reading some books. And the biggest thing was just like talking to other men about their experience. Cause I know with women, I've always wanted to impress every woman ever. And even
Guilty.
if it's, yeah, even the old librarian at the library who it's not like I'm going to ask her out on a date, but there's just something about me that wants to be liked and accepted by women.
Sure.
And so with guys, it's not the same. So being able to say, here's what's going on with me to guys was a big deal, but also to be able to listen and not just look good and trying to be right like about everything. Cause I can be a real know-it-all, and to just be humble enough to say, what do you think I should do here? Like that. Once I had those experiences, it was a big deal. But once I put that into practice in my life, it was a bigger deal because it's like, oh my God, this stuff that these guys who I didn't even know before last Tuesday that they told me to do and it worked. Like, that was just really powerful.
Yeah. What taking the first step is the toughest part about doing anything, new project, the new way of life, new eating habits, whatever. When you took that first step, I mean, did you kind of have to like talk to yourself a little bit and say, you know what, I'm doing this for myself. You know what, this will help. Were you nervous? Were you anxious? Were you kind of feeling like, man, I shouldn't do this? Was there any like mental chatter going on during the time when you went out for that first time, when you saw, you know, when you went to that first meeting or that first group or that first individual you talked to?
Oh, it was all chatter.
Sure.
It was all chatter. And also I was exhausted. I mean, I had been going to bars most nights. I hadn't been sleeping a lot. You know, I'd been doing a variety of chemical research and just a drink my body. So once I knocked it off, it was just like my body was able to like just go for the first time in a while. But my mind was still very loud because it was like, what, am I not supposed to have a drink at a Halloween party? It was just all this stuff. Yeah. But the truth was, the major shift in me was that I was able to admit that for the first time in my life, maybe I don't know what's best for me. Maybe other people do. And I had never thought that. And so I was 26 at the time. And, you know, I thought I had a really good grasp on the world and I had like a good job that I tried to use to prove it to people. But the truth was, I needed other people to tell me how to live my life. And it's not that it is not due to intelligence or anything like that. I just got involved in a lot of bad habits, and the ego is a tough thing to smash through. And I think it takes a village to do that. So now I'm at a point 6 years later where I can trust my instincts. You know, I live in such a way where if I do something that doesn't feel quite right, I know it's because I'm doing something that's probably not quite right.
Yeah, for sure. Now, congratulations. What, you've been sober 5 years, 6 years? What?
Yeah, almost 6.
Awesome. And everything's been going good? No breakdowns in the early stages or anything like that?
No. A really fortunate thing to me. Like, I didn't go to rehab or anything, but because I was working at a job where my boss was the one who first talked to me, and he was interested in, you know, how I was going to do. Like, I just felt like I had to be accountable. Yeah. And also I wanted to be accountable. Like, something shifted in my head where it was also like, you know what? I've got a good chance to not only live, but live a good life. So let's take it. Now, I didn't feel like that every second of every day, but I felt like that enough to get through.
Yeah. You know, the one thing that I really picked up from your little talk here with your boss is, you know, almost when you have issues or you're kind of going derailed a little bit, it sounded like speaking to somebody that you really respected, somebody that you understood their history and really kind of grasp of the individual, who they are, and then they trusted you and saying, you know what, you need to change or else, you know, the consequences, you're going to get fired. It sounded like, you know, for other people listening, you know what, maybe going out there and finding that one person you respect, you understand that they went through some personal difficulty, and maybe at the end put a consequence on it, can really, you know, put you on the straight and narrow. And congratulations to yourself for taking action off of that. And I could see, as a young man, 26 years old, I'm 28 years old. You know, I grew up here pretty quick within the last couple of years, but you know, at that stage in your life, it is a very it could have went two ways. The one way was obviously success afterwards and in realizing you need to transform, or you could have been like, well, screw you. Who are you to say, you know what? I want to continue to live my life. You don't know me, all that kind of stuff. I'm from the East Coast, blah, blah, blah. So it sounded like you took the better approach out of the two and succeeded on your path to the new you. But that's huge. That's huge. And I really congratulate you on that. Now, so after everything went very well for yourself and things were starting to progress and you know, less at the bars, better sleep, did your career progress after that then too, better?
Yeah, I did. What happened for me was I just had to clear my brain out for a while. So I wasn't really trying to set the world on fire when I was first getting sober. But after about a year, I realized that, oh, I have a lot of time on my hands. I'm feeling pretty good. What do I want to do with this? And as a creative guy, I was working on some TV shows. And the thing about TV is that the hours are pretty long. and I was a lot of times working 6 days a week. But I was able to say to myself, like, okay, with the time I do have, what are some new creative outlets I can discover? And going home to write a script every night just wasn't happening, because to work on scripts all day and then to go home and work on another project, it was just too tough for me. But so I started doing some blogging, I started doing podcasting, I started doing sports writing, I got to cover the Dodgers, I got to do all these like really fun, exciting things where I was really living life and doing things that I wouldn't have even imagined for myself, that I just absolutely loved. And it was a really exciting time. And because of that, that just kept opening up a lot of doors for me, and let me, like, there's so much out there that I could have or just be part of if I want to do the work.
Yeah. Now you are currently on Sullivan and Son, correct? You're writing for them. And how, being in that industry, it obviously out in the, California there, it's mostly TV. Movies are kind of all over the place, but I mean, the big companies are still located there, correct? Or
right.
Am I wrong? Okay.
Yep.
Being a part of a TV series and stuff, do you feel external pressure, being on a show that could go really well or could go really bad? What's going to happen if this storyline tanks? What's your next plan of action? It's not like being a postal worker or a teacher that you're kind of secure. And no offense to, postal workers or teachers, not trying to say that, but just curious, being in that industry where you never know what can happen. One month you're doing great, next month not so much. Can you kind of explain, what's your thought process on that?
Yeah, my thought process has become very zen, because the thing is, none of it matters. There's so much talk in Hollywood of like, is this project going to get picked up? Is this project going to get canceled? Right. Is this project, the start date pushed back 3 months, pulled up 1 month? Like, nothing's official until it's official, and then even when it's official, shows get canceled all the time. And I've had those experiences. But what I found is, what absolutely kills me and what I absolutely hate, and especially as a guy who doesn't drink anymore, it's like just all the talk about the BS. I just can't stand it anymore. So I just really try and be cliche and just approach every day as like one day at a time. And I was working on earlier this season on Sullivan and Son. One of our actors got injured, and that shut our production down for a little while. And our show was going great. Like, it wasn't going to get canceled. It was in a position where everything was going great. But all of a sudden, one day this happens and we get shut down for a couple weeks. So you just never know. But what I do know is I absolutely hate talking about it. I mean, it sucks life out of me, Jacob.
Yeah. So, sorry to bring it up then. I apologize.
No. I like talking about the solution to it.
Yeah.
But when somebody at work walks up to me and says, hey, do you think we're going to get picked up for next season, or how many episodes? It's like, you know what? The reality is I still have to find another job after this season. I still have to do this, still have to do that. I'd rather focus on that.
Yeah. And I work, as a city worker here, as a firefighter, and, we have a union, and union talk is always the hot topic. And I agree with you. It's one of those things. Well, is union going to do this? Is they going to do that? What's going to happen with this? And you're right. You just have to take it one day at a time. And, I get a lot of emails from people and go, well, I don't feel like I'm good enough at my job. I feel like every day I walk in, I'm going to get fired and stuff. Well, and I want to just like, kind of pull them through the email and say, you know what, you got to stop thinking like that, because every day you go in, tiptoeing around, you don't want to disturb anything, you will get fired for that, So it's one of those things, you just got to take it each moment. And it doesn't matter if it's for your job or just general life, enjoy these moments, enjoy everything that you're doing, because you never know what's going to happen next. So, very, very well put. Very well put. Now, where was I going to go with this? So, okay, so you do the Sullivan and Son, things are going good. You started up, you've always done podcasting, and I kind of want to change this conversation into the Man School, your current project. You have about, you said about 30 episodes, 29, 30?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And you interview individuals about successes, failures, everything under the sun that has to deal with just living as a human being on this earth. What have you personally learned from the individuals that have come on your show?
Well, I learned a lot about myself in just starting the show. And I had been doing some other podcasts over the years that were more comedy based. And I got to a point where I just did not want to put out an episode every week. Like the passion I had just kept dying. Like I just couldn't find that passion anymore. Like, and then so I decided to quit this one show I was doing And I said to myself, I love podcasting. What's the thing I'm most passionate about that's worth doing as a show? And so I figured it out. And that was having conversations with other men about their real life experiences. And look, it all starts for me with the boss who talked to me about sobriety. Like, that was such a powerful situation that what I've been able to realize, especially over the past 6 years, is that I really respond well to hearing about what other men have been through and about how they got through it. And even if that is something that's like, for example, brain cancer, like that's interesting to me, but also people who've had successes, like how do you get over yourself and your ego, and how do you stay in the game? And so with Man School, I've had a chance to bring on a different guy every week and talk about a different life experience that they've had. And I try and find what you can take away from it. And sometimes that's practical stuff, like, oh, I've had that situation, or maybe that situation is going to come up for me, or maybe it's just inspiration. But I find it's all about just being ready to listen and being open to what comes into your ears. And you want to know about specific things that I've learned?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, what you said there was perfect, and I was just going to say the reason why I really enjoy your show, and I think you and I are kind of on the same page, is that we both enjoy talking to people, learning about them, seeing what we can implement in our own lives, and because there's times that life will come down on us, and we're in a low point, and it's always nice to, you can remember, I talked to this guy and he said this, or he suggested that, and it's just nice and refreshing to hear that stuff, especially in today's day and age where, we're an instant society, and we just want that quick fix. We rather take a pill than try to research what the real reasoning is behind the things that we're doing. So, the people that you talk to, was there a reoccurring theme with some individuals that seem always to find failure? Did it always seem like they were just always the negative person, and then negative things always came up? Have you seen that reoccurrence time after time?
Yeah. I think especially with a lot of younger men, because look, testosterone is a hell of a drug.
Damn right.
I'm almost glad that I'm 32 now, so my testosterone levels have gone down enough where I can be sane a little bit and just not like a walking caveman.
Right.
So, like, especially for me as a young guy, you throw some alcohol and testosterone together. Yeah. My God, that's a cocktail. But with so a lot of people, I think a lot of men especially, they do grow out of their stuff. But at the same time, not all men do. Mm-hmm. So I think it comes down to getting to a point where you're ready to get over yourself. And I think your show, you do a great job about talking about that, like Operation Self Reset. You got to be ready to push the self reset button.
Right.
And I think a lot of the guys who I've talked to who have had success have gotten to that point. And some people, myself not included, are able to get to that point naturally. And other people like myself, it comes from hitting my head into the wall.
Right. No, very true. Everybody approaches it different ways, and it's the classic thing. Your dad tells you one thing, you don't believe him, and then you try it, and the stove's hot. No, I don't believe you, and you touch it, you burn your hand, you start crying. Well, I told you so. So yeah, you're exactly right, and it's very true when it comes to a life. And some people just need to go through it and realize it, and other people like to hear from other people and go, okay, well, I'm not going to do that, obviously. So, what is there one person that really sticks out that really was an inspiration to you that maybe you thought wasn't going to be as great of a guest on your show?
Well, the very first show I did was with Brian Bishop, aka Bald Brian, who's Adam Carolla's sidekick.
Oh, okay, sure.
And I've known Brian for a couple years, and he's got brain cancer. He has an inoperable brain tumor, and he's in good shape now. The tumor is not that much of a problem, but it's still there. And I had because I've known him and I've heard him on the radio a lot. Having him on the podcast, to me, it was a big deal, but it almost wasn't as big of a deal because I knew his story. Sure. So just how powerful it was a little bit lost on me because I was so close to it. But the response that I got and continue to get from people just really showed me that, oh my God, this guy's got such a strong story. He's got such a strong message, and he's just such a likable guy that it really resonates with people. And so being able to see my show through the lens of other people has really helped me appreciate certain guests.
Sure. Now, when I kind of want to bring this back around to you in California, and first off, how can people get in touch with the Man School? It's on iTunes, and
Yeah, search Man School on iTunes or Caleb Bacon, Caleb, Bacon like the food, and then manschoolshow.com is the website. And also, I'm on Twitter at Caleb Eats Bacon, and Facebook, all the different websites out there. Google Caleb Bacon. I'm the first guy who comes up. By the way, I better be the first Caleb Bacon. Because there's not too many of us.
Right. Pride. You have a very proudful tradition there with the bacon heritage. So I want to kind of wrap this around here with self-confidence. You're in an industry, you're in a demographic of the country where people have huge dreams. Some succeed, some fail, like I said earlier. And also, too, a lot of people get wrapped up in the flashy, pretty, skinny, in shape kind of mentality. I'm not good enough because this guy, this girl seems better, looks better, dresses better, what have you. What have you noticed in California about self-confidence? And also, too, how can people, I guess, improve upon their own personal self-confidence? Kind of a loaded question. I hope I didn't throw too much at you there.
Yeah, well, I'll give you my loaded answer.
There you go.
Well, actually, I haven't been loaded in almost 6 years.
There you go. Perfect.
Word joke. A friend of mine once said that any place that's got a good party scene is going to have a good recovery scene. And I have found that to be true. And in Los Angeles, there's a lot of people who are in recovery from a lot of things. And it's really nice that the culture is open to that. But so what you do see is a lot of people on both sides of the spectrum, and especially in confidence, especially. But so I think you do see a lot of people whose confidence may only come from their car or their tan or that sort of thing. But there's also a lot of people here, and this is what nobody really talks about, or nobody appreciates. Who's not here, or actually a lot of people who are here don't appreciate it. But there's a lot of people here who have done work on themselves and have been able to find some confidence, and I would say myself included. So for me, sobriety was just a start.
Sure.
I've had to not had to. I don't think you have to do anything, but because there's a certain life that I want, there's a certain man I want to be. I've tried to live in a certain way, and a lot of it is trial and error. But in order to find confidence, I've got to find comfort. And now I'm at a point where I know what comfort is for me. I know comfort is coming from an authentic place. It's not coming from an insecure place. It's not wanting to be liked. It's being okay in my skin and being okay to be me. So when I can feel like that and not feel that I have to crack a joke to be liked, or that I have to maybe even just kind of detach and be a quiet guy in the corner because screw it, I'm over these people. Like whatever it is, if I can just be part of the group and feel comfortable with that, then I know I'm in. Then I feel confident. And so for me, I've just had to listen to my body and listen to my mind. And also I also know what it is to go outside of my comfort zone in a healthy way. So I know I may have to fake a little bit of confidence sometime, but it's because I'm trying to get in the right direction, not because I'm trying to hide from myself.
No, very true. You got to be happy with yourself and understand your limits and know when you're expanding over that, so you can go, okay, this is a little new, you know what, and maybe take a little slower approach as opposed to just jumping in with both feet. And that's very true. And I don't want to. I'm not saying everybody that goes out to California, is they're lacking self-confidence, but that's a big town with a younger generation of people that come in there and they want to strike it rich, they want to make it big, and when things don't turn out right, they use materialistic things, physical features, what have you, as kind of a crutch, So, and I was just seeing your demographic, or excuse me, your approach to it, and it sounds like you like we've read and heard and seen a million times. You got to be comfortable with yourself first and understand your limitations and go from there. So, now, to kind of pull it to mindset a little bit, kind of back and forth here. This interview has been jumbled a little bit. I do apologize, but when it comes to when you're trying to be creative as an individual, mindset is really huge. To really dial in and focus and really be passionate. That you're in an industry that you love. Being a comedy writer, you just love it, you crave it. That's in your blood per se. When you find those difficulties of you're just not on your game that day, you walk in and you guys are sitting around the table throwing ideas around, there has to be times when you are just not feeling funny, or you just can't get those ideas out in the open, or they just don't connect in your mind. Have you had those moments?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And
Go on.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I have them a lot during a day, or sometimes it just kind of pops up here and there.
And how do you overcome that? I mean, how do you kind of get yourself back to zero and say, you know what, all right, okay, I just got to figure this out, relax. Obviously the worst thing to do is to panic and say, oh my gosh, I'm just not funny anymore. Did I lose it? I can see that chatter being really huge, swaying one side one day and the other side the other.
Which is funny for you to say to me, because you literally run into burning buildings.
Right. Exactly. Right.
But
right. Very true.
So for me, the nice thing about television writing is that you're part of a team. So some days, you have it, and some days you don't. And I know for me, I will sometimes have bad days, or just depressed days, or anxious days, or just days where I'm not very useful. But what I do know about me is that if I get a good night's sleep the next day, I've got a 99% chance of having a good day. Good. So sometimes I just have to just try and ride it out and get to the end of the night.
Sure.
But I do have that hope in the back of my head that, all right, tomorrow I get another shot. Now, ideally, I would love to be able to kind of reset any day at any moment, and sometimes I can do that. And sometimes I just have to get some fresh air. Or what works for me a lot is to just call friends who know me and my issues and just say, here's what's going on. Just tell me the truth, and that will help me so much.
No, that's huge. The two things you said, well, call friends, and then, having a team around you. Do you feel the team atmosphere is key to personal and or individual success?
Well, it's great because it tries all of your character defects. They will all pop up. There's always somebody in the team who's going to try your patience, or, bring out something new, like stereotypes you didn't know you had, or, what, that's probably not the right word, but
right.
Push your buttons, basically.
Sure.
And I think having those buttons pushed is the best way to get through it. It's just about how you respond.
Now, calling friends, what are you searching for? Are you just trying to get back on a level mind again? Are you looking to just kind of pour out the things that are maybe bothering you? When you talk to these individuals, because I'm just trying to relate the material that we're talking about to the people listening, because they're struggling with stuff, and maybe the key is just to call an old friend or call your parents or whatever. What is it that you really pour out to that individual that has helped you?
Well, a lot of times I don't want support. I want the truth.
Okay.
And I don't want someone to say it'll all be okay. Now, sometimes I do, but a lot of times, if I'm working a lot, I'm not getting a lot of sleep, maybe I'm eating a bunch of junk food, it's a lot easier to get wrapped up in my head, basically in my ego. And I don't believe of ego as arrogance. I just believe ego of constantly thinking of yourself. So if I call up someone else who's, has a similar life to me and similar goals, who's a good friend, and I can say, here's what's going on. I don't know what to do. And if a friend says, you're just worried about this too much, settle down. And that's usually what a lot of my friends say to me. That's like enough to knock me down a few notches, to whereas whatever seemed to be a problem, it's like, you know what? Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I am just in my head.
Sure. Now, in the mornings, are you big? Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here and I'm jumping around again. When you talk, and is there closure with these conversations? Do you feel refreshed? Do you feel energized? Like, okay, I got to work on that. Do you kind of bicker on the phone a little back and forth, or you feel confident in the people you call and the opinions they give you?
Yeah, it depends. I've got a variety of friends, and I've also got some different mentors. And a lot of times when I hear something I don't want to hear, that's when I know it's good stuff.
Sure.
Because it's like, oh, does that mean I have to go do some work about this? Or does that mean I can't pout or I have to go be patient with that person? Usually the answer is yes. And even if I don't want to hear it, it's like, it's the right way to get me some peace.
Sure. When it comes to self-help, have you read a book that really inspired you in any way?
The Operation Self-Reset ebook.
Yes, you are the only one that has it, so I do appreciate the push. Today only, guys, we are offering the self-help. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Thank you for that. Yeah, not yet. To be continued. Yeah, I'll be putting that together shortly.
Oh, well, there's a lot of stuff, and I'm blanking on a specific at the moment.
That's fine. No big deal.
Well, I try and consume a lot of stuff, and different things feed me at different times. And some stuff is some spiritual stuff I like. And even if I read something spiritual that like I don't agree with, I still enjoy trying to figure out what's going on there. Or I recently read the biography of this comedian, Greg Fitzsimmons. And he's a funny guy. He's got a good podcast and I like him a lot. And his story is a lot about his character defects and just how they showed up in his life and how they made his life crappier. And it's not necessarily a story of triumph. I mean, it is in some ways, but it's not framed as like a self-help book or anything.
Sure.
But when I read stuff like that, that really feeds my soul and pushes me in a way that makes me want to be a better person.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Caleb, honestly, I mean, it's a true. It's great to have another individual like yourself, trying to share personal stories with the world pretty much about how to, transform, change, successes, failures. That's the one thing I truly, with this podcast, I don't want to be known as that guru or the self-help expert. I mean, it would be cool to be that guy, but at the same time, we personally, I think Americans in the world really just love true stories. We get more out of a story than we do. Well, you know what? To be happy, you have to follow steps 1 through 5. There's no real way to live your life. There's no real guide or book or outline to be successful or to get over failures or what have you. It's something you just got to find within yourself. And the more people you talk to, like you're doing and I'm doing, and some other great podcasts out there that I've yet to come upon. Are just sharing real stories that have real value. And there's nothing better than that, man. So I salute everything you do. And I really do appreciate you coming on today's podcast. You gave some great tips, the way you live your life, the way that you've seen the life in California, a little different from the East Coast and Wisconsin. Now, what's the one big thing that you realize from East Coast to West Coast? Anything from food to just people dress or what have you? Anything that really stuck out or you just kind of chuckled to yourself every now and then?
Oh my God, are tacos amazing? You think you've had a taco, but you haven't.
Sure. Okay.
You come to Los Angeles, you can feast for days and days and days on so many different types of tacos that there's such a place in my heart for tacos and stomach.
Sure. See, that's the best thing about you. You're so good at being funny. You just slide it in there so subtly, and it's just like it comes up and bites you. It's like a hot sauce. You're like, oh, this is not hot, and then it comes back. It's like, oh my God, what the heck did I just eat? So, Caleb, honestly, man, appreciate it again. You can find Caleb at the Man School on iTunes. Follow him on Twitter. Caleb Eats Bacon, and I will put all of the links and everything like that in the show notes. Again, Caleb, it's been great. We'll have to get you back on here.
Oh, thank you so much, Jacob. And I really appreciate what you're doing. And you got a great show. And if your listeners if they're new to this episode, listen to the other ones. They're good too.
Thanks again to Caleb Bacon for coming on the OSR podcast. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys really enjoyed and got a lot out of that interview. Like I said, you never know who you're going to be talking to. Each and every one of us has a great story to share. Successes, failures, things that we have accomplished in our lifetime. It just shows that literally a couple of emails back and forth and then talking to Caleb on the podcast over the microphone, he unfolded his whole life in front of me. It's crazy. It's so rewarding to hear different perspectives on life. So I hope you guys can walk away from this podcast episode and learn a couple of things from Caleb's Bacon's life. That's what it's about. Our own personal reset, but the way that we reset our own lives is by learning from other individuals, learning from people that have gone through it, learning from people that are living it day in and day out. So when we see that path in front of us, we can go, hey, Mr. Bacon did it like this. I might change it like that, or I might go down the same road. However you want to tackle life, at least you now have the education, the knowledge behind it to make educated decisions when it comes to transforming your life from the person you are right now to that person that you want to become. So before I let you guys go, because I know we're coming up in an hour here, and I appreciate your guys' time, and I want to give you guys a free gift if you have not left a review for the Operation Self Reset podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, I would greatly, greatly appreciate a review. But instead of heading over to iTunes to leave the review, if you guys could go to osrpodcast.com, I actually have a free gift for you guys. If you leave a review for the podcast and subscribe to the podcast, I'm going to send you this free report that gives you 9 apps to download on your iPhone or Android phone or tablet or whatever to keep you focused, motivated, to keep your goals in order, to keep your lists of life in order. Truly, these 9 apps have helped me so much. Head on over to osrpodcast.com and just follow the 3 steps. They're really simple, and I'll send you this free report on these apps you must have on your device. Thanks again for taking the time and listening to this podcast. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. And as we put away the Thanksgiving feast and we put away our Black Friday deals and steals, just remember what is coming up here, Christmas, one of the best times of the year. Literally, there are songs singing. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is. Get into the holiday spirit. Life is too short to be a bah humbug. And if not, do it for yourself, do it for your kids, do it for your family, do it for the other kids in the neighborhood. Get into the holiday spirit. Change it up. And I want to share a quick little story. Last year, we had a company party at one of my coworkers' house. And I told them that we should do a ugly sweater party, right? That's where you take a hideous, ugly Christmas sweater, you put it on and you get kind of silly and you have a good time. Well, I decided to set this up. I told everybody, there's about 20 of us in our group, to go to this gentleman's house, wear ugly sweater, all that fun stuff. Well, as I approach the door and my wife and I are wearing our hideous ugly sweaters, I have a white turtleneck with white, khaki pants, black shoes. I comb my hair. I parted it down the middle. I have these funky glasses on. I have my weird cup, for my eggnog, spice eggnog, of course. And I walk on in and everybody else is wearing traditional clothes. So the prank was on me. The Christmas joke was on me. So that's what Christmas is all about. Having fun, enjoying life, enjoying everything that comes with it. Get that kid attitude mentality back in your life because it's a lot of fun. It's fun to act silly and just get into the holiday spirit. Wear that ugly sweater with pride. Maybe not out in public, but you can wear it underneath your coat to represent that you're still wearing your ugly sweater. So there you guys go. We'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for all your support. Thanks for all the emails. And if you have any questions for me, email me support@operationselfreset.com. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week.